Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show. Autumn is here. I'm your host, Francine Crawford. And today we're speaking to Dr. Annette Marie Robinson, which was the New York State Assembly Member, retired. And she's here today to give us some information. So we welcome her to a show. Welcome, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Crawford. It's a pleasure to have an opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you so much for taking your time and being here with us on Autumn is Here. First, let's tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, I've been a wife, mother, a grandmother. I'm a great grandmother, and I'm the mother of six children. I have 14 grandchildren.
All right.
I have six great grandchildren, and I've been a caregiver all of my life, so to speak. And so I can talk to you further about that as you ask me questions. I've been a caregiver for so many people. I started out with my husband's mother. My husband and I were married for 52 years before he passed away. And then my daughter passed away in 2012, my oldest daughter. And so that leaves me with 5 children. I have 4 sons and I had 2 daughters. I had 6 children. Okay. And so we as a family, we're trying to survive. We're getting ready to celebrate our 50th anniversary in this house. We moved here in 1974, and so we're very proud to say that we're still here on this block in this house. So we're going to celebrate that in July at our block party. So that's just a little snippet of who I am. Okay.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. So also, when you were a New York State Assembly person, I'm sure you fought for a lot of different committees and rights and some issues that you dealt with. And some of them may have dealt with aging and health and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, surely I can. In fact, I was on the aging committee.
Okay.
I was on the aging committee. Not only was I on the aging committee, but I've also been a person that has had an opportunity to provide services. Let me give you a little background in this regard. I guess you would say in the latter part of the 70s, I'm going back now, in the latter part of the 70s, I used to direct a program called an intergenerational program, which paired young people and older people together. Because at that time, there was discussion about young people and old people were not, older adults, as they call them now, were not connecting. And so the program that I conducted was one that brought older adults together with young people. And from that time to during that time, I also received a certificate for that because that was a very unique program that came as a result of a position in the New York State Assembly that they said needed to be done. And so I began to pair the young people and the older adults together, and we had an intergenerational program. And that's what many people are trying to do now, intergenerational programs for the aging.
Oh, okay. Is that still going on in the area where you started it?
No, not the program that I created, because that organization no longer exists. But there are organizations. There's a program called Age Friendly now that has been doing something like that. Age Friendly has a similar kind of concept, but it's not the same concept, but it's a similar concept in terms of bringing the young people and the older people together.
Okay. Have you seen anything that is different and that has progressed in that time that you were working and now what's happening? Is things getting better for the aging?
Well, I'll tell you what has happened is that many, many years ago, I and some others that worked on, there was a program within an organization within the community called the Bedford-Stuyvesant Interagency Council on the Aging. Right. It put a program together and it provided home services for the elderly. That meant that there was a program, and this program was for people who were over Medicaid eligible. These people, for people that had Medicare, did not have Medicaid. So this was a program for people who had Medicare. And so what happened was that they were able to get in-home services. We had a program that would go in and help people clean their houses. They would also provide personal care for them, shop for them. Whatever was needed for that person at that particular time, we were able to provide it for them through that program. It was called Concord Home Services for the Elderly. That no longer exists, but I guess they have some other kind of version of that program with the New York City Department for the Aging now, but it's not the same program.
Okay. Okay. All right. So have you seen things as far as health concerns, things getting better, with what's access to people aging?
Services for the elderly, are better because there's more information that's disseminated, and as a result of that, people have more access. And then there's been an expansion of senior centers. I'll call them senior centers. And as a result of that, they do a lot of special programs in the senior centers that help the seniors to be aware, or older adults become aware of healthcare programs. They have exercise in there. They have dance in the senior or the older adult centers. That makes a difference for people. And of course, with the nutrition as well, that's healthy for them because they go and they get proper nutrition, but then they're also trained on how to eat properly, how to exercise and keep their bodies healthy, and what to eat and how to take their medicine properly. Those are some of the things that's very important at this particular time, that people learn to live better. And that's what they do. The older adult centers help people to live better.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great.
Yes.
So as a caregiver, as you said, you were a caregiver to many. So as a caregiver, when you first became a caregiver, did you know what that all entails? Because we're finding that like people become caregivers and they're not ready because no one understands like what that takes, and it takes a lot.
It does. Yeah. It does. No, I did not. I was very young at the time. And my mother-in-law came to live with us, and she was sick, and I didn't know what the needs. I didn't know what the needs were that what she needed, but I adapted to it to find out what I needed to do to be able to care for my mother-in-law. She was very sick. She had a kidney problem and so on and so forth. And then eventually, unfortunately, she passed away. But I had started the process to find out the details of what I needed to do to be able to help her. And I had another situation, not only with my mother-in-law, but my brother-in-law. I had a brother-in-law that I had to assist who was deaf. My brother-in-law was deaf. So therefore I had to go to disability for him to make sure he had his services and resources that he needed to be able to survive. And I had no idea what it meant to go to Social Security. I went to Social Security for him so he could get Medicaid, food stamps, and those kinds of things, so he would be able to take care of himself. He was the kind of fellow, even though he had a disability, that he was not a slouch. He was a person that would always go out and try to make a way for himself, And so I took care of him as well, made sure that he ate properly as well, because he also had some problems with his body that needed to be taken care of. So I took care of him too, made sure he got to his doctor's appointments and whatnot like that. So those are the kinds of things that a caregiver has to do. They have to make sure that they eat properly, they take their medication on time, and also that they get to their appointments to make sure that they stay healthy. Yes. So those are some of the things that need to be done. In addition to all the other things that you have to do for people to make sure that they're mentally healthy as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you have support? Yes,
I had support. I had my husband, and I had my husband, and my children were growing up. They were little then, but they were still in the house. But then my mother and father, they were also very helpful as well, because my mother was a nurse. And so therefore her being a nurse was helpful to me because I had learned from her. Because I saw how my mother had taken care of her mother. Mm-hmm. And so therefore I was able to understand and empathize and see what it is to be able to take care of someone.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So in your experience, I'm sure like in the beginning, you didn't know certain things, but what are some of the things that you learned that was so important that maybe you wished you had in the beginning, or you learned as you went along that you can share with us?
Well, I learned, I guess you would say, how to be able to be a caregiver and what the needs, to be able to acknowledge the needs of the person that is ill. Because sometimes, even up to my husband, I had to take care of my husband as well. So my husband passed away in 2009. And so you learn so much about people and how they respond to illness and what it's all about for how they feel internally. And then you adapt to their need to be able to help them, whether it's their physical need or their emotional need. And also, it had to do with the spiritual need. That's also very important because they feel sometimes that people don't care for them or they're not loving. And you got to be loving and caring for people who are sick and ill. You really do, because they require a lot of care. Even to the extent of that, when you talk about people, you hear people talk about how people in the hospitals and some of them get bed sores and things like that, or they don't have anyone to come to see about them. Right. That's a tragedy. That's a tragedy. So my husband did not have to experience that. My mother didn't have to experience that because I took care of my husband, my mother, my father, my aunt, and my uncle. I took care of all those people at some point in time. I have a goddaughter who is 94 years old that I'm responsible for. But she's not like chronically ill, but she is in a wheelchair and she has needs as well. And she's starting to go through experiencing some, I guess you would say, dementia to some extent, or memory loss. I'll use that word, memory loss. Yeah. And so it's important for the caregiver to be kind and understanding and listening to what people are saying, because they begin to feel that they're losing control of themselves. And as a result of that, they may get a little angry at times. And so therefore that's something that you have to be able to be ready to deal with.
Wow. Okay. So let me ask you, since you were in politics, is there something that that's existing now that you want better, as far as that the government can do, that a law can happen or something like that? Is there something that's out there that needs to be supported in this regard?
I think that better can always be done. Better can always be done, because I can't speak specifically to any particular law right now, but I do think that ongoing, there needs to be an increase in the services for the elderly. Even though they have this program, there's a program called the Freedom Program, where they're bringing in people to serve as caregivers. Your family member can serve as a caregiver. I think that that could be expanded, but modified. It could be expanded, but looked at as to how we do that. And I think that there needs to be training for those people, even if it's a family member. They need to be able to be trained better so that they understand all the nuances that I just described as to how people respond as they're not well. And I think that's one of the issues that I would work toward. And the other issue is to ensure that, I guess you would say, that people have, health insurance, that they have health insurance. So there are still people that don't have the health insurance that they could have as a result of the Affordable Care Act, which is also called Obamacare. Many people don't have that as they should, and they should be able to have health insurance. In addition to that, I think the reduction, and some of that has taken place during this federal administration, in terms of the reduction of paying for medication. Medication is something that people struggle with. Before now they've reduced the amount of money that people have to pay for what you call diabetic medicine, and so therefore that's something that, or other medicines that need to be reduced, because people will not be able to afford it. So there are people now that choose whether to pay rent or eat cat food. There's some people that are eating cat food, or dog food, so that they can maintain their medicine. So those are some things that I think that could be improved in terms of that. Well, make sure that they all have health insurance. Also, looking at the cost of medication and improving the in-home services for people. They need to be improved. In-home services for people, because more and more there are people that approach me and say, "I need home care," and have not been able to get it because they didn't have anyone available to be able to provide home care for them. And so that's something that needs to be expanded. Home care for the elderly needs to be expanded. And of course, people need someone to come into their homes. Those people that cannot afford for their homes, have someone to come in and clean on a regular basis. Have somebody to come in and do some cleaning for them and help them with their laundry and things like that. So more of those services need to be provided. And so those just in a snapshot, those are some things that come off the top of my head right now.
Okay, awesome. So some things that we talk about is trying to encourage families to get more involved with their aging parents. We all know that you're getting older and people are getting older. What would you say to family members to encourage them to be more aware of their aging parents? Is there something that you would say to that?
Yes, I would, because there's so many issues. Many of their aging parents, and it has been my experience, is that many of the aging parents have, put aside some resources. Mm-hmm. And as a result of putting aside some resources, sometimes the family members don't always pay attention to them unless they're getting a handout. But mm-hmm. what happens is they have to be very careful, because there are other people that come around and act like they're going to be friendly, but they're grifters. They're grifters, people that want to come and take advantage of older people. Mm-hmm. And so at one point in time, I told folks, look, put your name on some mail, say, for example, the gas bill, the telephone bill, the electric bill, water bill, something, so that if your parent becomes so that they cannot handle their financial affairs, that the mail will come to you as well. Okay. So that you would be able to know that there's a problem with the property. Yeah. This has to do with people that have homes, and we've done this. Mm-hmm. And so that if you would find out that they're at risk of perhaps losing that property, because the mail would have come to you and you would be aware of it. Mm-hmm. And so in doing, the other part of that is that ensuring that there's a presence in the family with that older person. Because there are people that come around, whether it's somebody may come to the house, or they may see your parent out at the store, and they come and befriend them and talk to them. And sometimes they will go to them and say, well, let's go to the ATM, or whatever the case may be. And so that's that scam is going on each and every day. In fact, I had the opportunity of seeing one of my dear friends was in the bank. And as a result of that, I was seeing him in the bank too many times. And so as a result of that, I called his daughter. I said, I'm seeing your father in the bank too many times. And he was starting to have, his situation with his health in terms of, some memory loss and whatnot like that. So I said, I'm seeing your father in the bank too many times. And so she put the kibosh on that. I'll use that word. She put the kibosh on that quickly, so that she limited exactly what he could take out of the bank. So family members need to be aware of that. There are people that are all around trying to take something from their loved ones, whether it be their home, or come into their home to see if maybe they could take the home itself, or abuse that person in some way. And they steal from them. They come in and steal their jewelry and whatever they have. So they need to know about that. And they need to be for the socialization and the love. They need to do that. Because if your loved ones don't have socialization and love, they start to deteriorate. Mm-hmm. And as a result of the deterioration, then they end up, you don't want them to end up in nursing homes and things like that. You want them to be able to be cared for at home. So therefore, My recommendation is try to be as loving and caring as you possibly can with your loved ones, so that they know and understand that you care for them. It takes a little time, but I find often that sometimes you only have one, and you have many children, and they're not able to take care of one mother.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I've seen that in so many instances through time, that they have not been able to take care of their mother. And they should be able to do better. They should be able to do better,
Mhm.
because the resources are there to help them in terms of reaching out. There are government resources that you can reach out to, and to help to undergird you. And there's seminars and workshops and programs. The New York City Department for the Aging has many valuable services for families, and they need to take advantage of it, even to the extent that they have a program that Department for the Aging has a program. Whereas if your loved one is not able to handle their finances, there's someone that can come from the Department for the Aging that can sit down and help them to pay their bills and things like that. And so that they kind of keep track of stuff. And so, I mean, there are programs there. So there's no reason for anyone not to be able to take care of their loved one, because their programs and services are there with the New York City Department for the Aging.
Okay. Okay. So, one more question. As a senior, is there something that you want to let people know, that because people tend to overlook seniors, people tend to act like they don't have a voice. Is there something that you want to say as a senior? Because you have a lot of wisdom, you're still here, you're healthy. There's still things for you to do. So, what would you like to, so we can,
Well,
look at you with more value?
thank you. One of the things that I did in my early days, we registered seniors to vote, because seniors were not voting as they should have. We registered them to vote. Then we organized them so that they would have a voice. That's what we did. We organized them so that they would have a voice, and we began to talk to them so that they know that they had a voice. They had a voice with their vote. And that's how many of the seniors within our community became very active in voting and participation, because they were registered and voting. And as a result of registered and voting, we were able to bring services, like I said before, the Concord services for the elderly. And as a result of that as well, we had the transportation services for the elderly, as well as the services for the home, in the home, and other services. The programs that grew out of that, their programs grew out of that same situation of people being registered and voting. And it's important that they participate, because that is their voice. Because what happens is people go, the elected officials go to the book. You can always go to the book and look and see who voted and who did not vote. And, and often in years gone by, people got resources according to how they participated. And when they were not participating, many of the people did not get the services that they would do. But as we started to organize and vote, it began to make a difference. And that's when we began to get different kinds of services in our community that made a difference. So I would dare to say to people, you must be organized, you register and vote, and you need to participate. And also, I think that also what is important too, your spiritual development. Your spiritual development is so important. You need to be a part of some kind of spiritual center, whatever that spiritual center is for you. Then you need to be part of a spiritual center, because it helps to keep you whole. It helps to keep you. It helps to keep you centered, and it makes a difference. That's what it works for me, and it works for so many others. At my church recently, they held an event where they had. They gave living legacy pins to living legend pins to people in the church who were 80 and above. And so I was very pleased to be one of those persons, 80 and above, to receive a living legend pin. And so I raised that. Those people in the church, it was so many that were in the church, 80 and above, that received those living legend pins. So there's something to be said about the spiritual aspect of being in a community of believers, and it makes a difference, because what happens collectively, you're able to sustain and lift up each other. So I think that that's important. Sometimes when people don't have families the church has been the sustainer for them. And I think the church, mosque, or center, wherever they go, that could be a sustainer for them to be able to appreciate life better and to be able to sustain themselves and keep themselves healthier, because the church also provides outreach in terms of healthy information. And if you're not going out to meetings and whatnot like that, but you still need to be involved and active. If you're not active in a spiritual place or a community space, that's important for people. I think it's very important. That's the way we kind of maintain some sense of order and balance in our lives.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the audience?
I would just like to say that at this particular point in time, we do have an election coming up. In fact, tomorrow is the first day of early voting.
Yes.
And so people need to know that tomorrow is the first day of early voting. And those that are registered and have been voting, you need to get out and vote. These are some very crucial times for us in government. And we need to make sure that we make the right choices, because if not, we're going to have a challenging time in America. We're going to have a challenging time in America if we don't make the right choices. So that's all I want to say. We must be registered in voting and participating, because it makes a difference in your life. That also brings the kinds of services that we need for our older adults, as they call them, older adults. Okay. So I hope that I've provided you with some information that I think would be helpful as you move forward, Francine. And thank you so very much for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, you did give us a lot of information that is very helpful and very insightful. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be interviewed on Autumn is Here and just sharing your experience with us. It'll help someone else. So, and we're here to encourage everyone.
Yes.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Autumn. Nice talking to you here.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, dear. All right. Bye-bye.